I am Pastor David Baxley, and I welcome you to join this video study of end-time events and a verse-by-verse study of the book of Revelation. I invite you to follow along in this study and to email your questions to me. Email the questions to endtimesandrevelation@gmail.com. This study is taken from my book, Understanding the Book of Revelation, and it will cover 25 video lessons. This is lesson 12 in our study of end-time events and the book of Revelation, and it covers chapter 9 of the book of Revelation. Timeline. Time has moved to just after the midpoint of the tribulation, just after 3.5 years into the tribulation, into the first part of the second half of tribulation. The second half of tribulation is referred to as the Great Tribulation because the woes greatly increase in intensity. 4 of the 7 angels have already sounded their horns. The angels, one by one, announce the next judgment in this first of a 2-part series of judgments found under the 7th seal. The judgments of the first 4 trumpets affected elements of the earth, water, and vegetation. The 5th through 7th trumpets bring demonic judgments on the earth. In spite of the fact that there is hell on earth in these judgments, people still refuse to repent. Verse 1. Then the 5th angel sounded, and I saw a star fallen from heaven to the earth. To him was given the key to the bottomless pit. John saw a fallen star. The word fallen is a perfect tense participle, having previously fallen and now being in a fallen state. John did not actually see the fall. He saw what happened many years before. John saw the fallen Satan. What about the star wormwood that fell to the earth in the previous chapter? Is wormwood and the star described here the same? It could be, but that raises questions about the time of the falling. The effects of wormwood brought death to many people who drank the water. Satan has affected everything on earth, and they're probably not the same thing. We know that Satan fell, and it appeared that he enticed 1/3 of the angels in heaven to rebel with him. Revelation chapter 12, verse 4. If you understand the dragon who with his tail drew 1/3 of the stars from heaven and cast them to earth as Satan's rebellion. Some view this as Satan caused meteors to fall from heaven to the earth during the tribulation. Satan's rebellion would have had to occur around the creation time because we see Satan in the Garden of Eden tempting Eve. It appears that Satan will be restricted from having access to heaven forever during this second half of the tribulation period. Satan has had some kind of access to God through time. We see him in the book of Job talking to God about Job in heaven. The focus of this chapter is the fact that John sees the fallen Satan who is given the key to hell during tribulation. Verse 2. And he opened the bottomless pit, and smoke arose out of the pit like the smoke of a great furnace. So the sun and the air were darkened because of the smoke of the pit. Satan takes the key and unlocks the door of hell. This is the bottomless pit and not the lake of fire. When he does, dark smoke completely fills the sky above him. The abyss, the place of death, hell, and Hades are names given to the place of death for non-believers waiting for eternal judgment. The lake of fire is the eternal destination after the white throne judgment for non-believers. It appears that there are compartments in hell for different purposes around the lake of fire. The abyss is where demons are locked up. Where did these locked up demons come from? Well, many speculate that they are the angels that failed in their mission on earth before the flood in Genesis. This is when the great flood came upon the earth. These angels, it is believed, inhabited human bodies and were called the sons of God. They lusted after and slept with the daughters of men. In the book of Jude, it says that these angels who did not keep their proper domain were chained under the earth in the abyss. These fallen angels that God had cast into the abyss could be who Satan releases. Whoever they are, Satan will use them as an army to help him carry out evil upon the earth. Verse 3. Then out of the smoke locusts came upon the earth, and to them was given power, as the scorpions of earth have power. Out of the smoke came something that John describes as locusts, and they filled the earth. The locusts described here were not like any locusts that we know about. They are described as having power like scorpions. Locusts were used by God for judgment in the plagues on Egypt. But these tools of judgment are far more fierce than any previously. These ferocious creatures appear to be demons released to help Satan bring greater pain to the earth than has ever been done before. Verse 4. They are commanded not to harm the grass of the earth, or any green thing, or any tree, but only those men who do not have the seal of God on their foreheads. Normal locusts have a natural instinct to destroy vegetation, so these are not normal locusts. These demons were given the sting of scorpions, but could not harm the trees and vegetation of the earth, nor those who have been saved and were sealed by God. Verse 5. And they were not given authority to kill them, but to torment them for 5 months. Their torment was like the torment of a scorpion when it strikes a man. They could not kill or torment the saved because they were sealed, but they will torment the unrepentant sinner for 5 months with the sting of a scorpion. A severe sting of a scorpion is said to have these symptoms: widespread numbness, difficulty swallowing, a thick tongue, blurred vision, roving eye movements, seizures, salivation, and difficulty in breathing. Verse 6. In those days men will seek death and will not find it. They will desire to die, and death will flee from them. The effects of the sting will be so severe that people will try to commit suicide, but won't be able to. These attempts for death may add to their physical pain. Verse 7. The shape of the locust was like horses prepared for battle. On their heads were many crowns of something like gold, and their faces were like the faces of men. John described the appearance of the locusts. They look like locusts, but have tails like scorpions. He said they were shaped like very fit horses. These locust scorpions, horse-like beings, were wearing crowns that had an appearance like gold. These strange-looking creatures had faces like men. Verse 8. They had hair like women's hair, and their teeth were like lions' teeth. And they had breastplate like breastplates of iron, and the sound of their wings was like the sound of chariots with many horses running into battle. They had tails like scorpions, and there were stings in their tails. Their power was to hurt men 5 months. There's a lot of speculation as to what John is really describing. Some believe they're helicopters. The men's face described the bubble front with lights on it, and the scorpion tail describes the tail of the helicopter. The wings would be obvious, and the hair and teeth may describe articles of warfare. The argument for this interpretation is that these could be nuclear helicopters bringing this kind of pain with nuclear aftermath. Then there are those who believe that these are literal locusts with these special features described, who are demon-possessed. Most likely they are demons with the described characteristics to bring intense pain upon the unsaved. The prophet Joel describes locusts and lions like horses galloping to war to emphasize the severity of judgment. The focus is not on what the creature is. The focus is that John saw Satan releasing some help from hell, and they had the power to inflict great pain, so much pain that many will try to commit suicide but can't. They have this great power, but that power is limited by God, so they can't destroy vegetation and can't kill anyone. God further limits their power so that they cannot inflict pain on true believers. This will be a demonic invasion that will bring horror to the earth. This intense torment will last for 5 months and will take place sometime after the middle in the first part of the second half of the 7 years of tribulation. Verse 11. And they had a king over them, the angel of the bottomless pit, whose name in Hebrew is Abaddon, but in Greek he has the name Apollyon. Then John is introduced to the king of the abyss. His name in Hebrew is Abaddon, which is often translated as destruction, and is closely associated with death and the grave. In Greek, the name is translated Apollyon, which has the sense of personality to it. These names seem to show that this destruction is personal to both king and angel. Verse 12. One woe is past. Behold, still 2 more woes are coming after these things. John has seen 4 angels pronouncing different judgments on the environment and vegetation of the earth. Then John sees a woe or judgment pronounced that affects lost humans with devastating pain for 5 months. Now John is being told that there are 2 more of these judgments coming that will affect everything. Verse 13. Then the 6th angel sounded, and I heard a voice from the 4 horns of the golden altar which is before God. Now the 6th angel steps up and sounds the trumpet call for judgment. The 6th trumpet judgment is longer than the previous ones, but there appears to be a break during this judgment from chapter 10 verse 1 through chapter 11 verse 13. During this break, John actually participates in the events and then goes back to being a witness of the events of final judgment. A voice from the 4 horns of the golden altar appears to be someone other than God speaking. The golden altar before God gives a picture of the temple and the way it was laid out. The golden altar was placed in the Holy of Holies, the place that represented the presence of God. On this altar, the incense was burnt, representing prayers offered to God. This altar, covered with gold, had a projection, or a protruding part on each corner. The voice appears to come from these projections on the corners of the golden altar. Verse 14. Saying to the 6th angel who had the trumpet, Release the 4 angels who are bound at the great river Euphrates. These 4 angels appear to be fallen angels who have been constrained from bringing Satan's pain upon the earth until the time that the 6th angel of judgment was given the authority to release them. Verse 15. So the 4 angels who had been prepared for the hour and day and month and year were released to kill 1/3 of mankind. These 4 fallen angels were prepared for just this assignment and were released to kill 1/3 of the earth's population. 1/3 of the land and water supply have already been killed, and now the inhabitants. Verse 16. Now the number of the army of the horsemen was 200 million. I heard the number of them. This destruction will make World War II look insignificant. Today, the world's population is somewhere around 7.5 billion and growing. Remember in chapter 6, 1/4 of the world's population is killed by current population. That would be 1,800,000,000 people killed in the judgment of Revelation chapter 6. That human loss would leave about 5,700,000,000 people still alive. Killing 1/3 of these 5,700,000,000 people would be somewhere around 1,880,000,000 people killed in this judgment described here. That means there was a total of somewhere around 3,680,000,000 people killed in these two judgments. That's a lot of people. Who were these people that have been killed? Well, we're not told. It's been speculated that it could be people on North America and South America, a population around 1 billion, and other countries leaving the newly erected Roman Empire and Israel for the final war. We don't know where these deaths will take place. 200 million is a huge number. But who is this huge army? It has been thought that this army had to be the army of China because they were the only ones big enough to have an army that size. But today, India could have the possibility to come close, and with a coalition of some of their neighboring nations, they could raise that size of an army. But when you look at the details of this army, it does not appear to be a human army. It seems that this is probably an army of demonic creatures that Satan has released from the abyss. There will be an army from the east coming during the 6th bowl judgment, which probably will be an army from China, but the size of that army is not given. Verse 17. And thus I saw the horses in the vision. Those who sat on them had breastplates of fiery red, hyacinth blue, and sulfur yellow, and the heads of the horses were like the heads of lions, and out of their mouths came fire, smoke, and brimstone. These are not ordinary horses. They breathe fire out of their mouths, and their head looked like lions, but they were ridden like a horse. In the 2nd chapter of Joel, it tells about horses having a sound like chariots that leap over mountaintops. Some believe that John was describing futuristic military equipment. This seems unlikely because it fits together smoothly to view these as demon-like horses ridden by demon soldiers led by 4 demons or fallen angels. Verse 18. By these 3 plagues, 1/3 of mankind was killed, by the fire and by the smoke and the brimstone which came out of the mouth. Think about the fact that 1,880,000,000 people are killed at this time. What a nightmare for those who are left. With that many dead bodies to dispose of, just think of the stench of the decaying bodies. For their power is in their mouth and in their tails. For their tails are like serpents having heads, and with them they do harm. The tails of the horses are like serpents or snakes with heads and mouths. Just think about how lethal the power of each horse's tail will be. But the rest of mankind who were not killed by these plagues did not repent of the works of their hands, that they should not worship demons and idols of gold, silver, brass, stone, and wood, which can neither see nor hear nor walk. There are some 3,820,000,000 people left, if you figure on today's population, who will still not repent of their sin and continue to follow the Antichrist. They were given time to repent, but they will not accept Christ's grace. Verse 21. And they did not repent of their murders or their sorceries or their sexual immorality or their thefts. Murder could include those who were killed for not worshiping the Antichrist, abortion, euthanasia, and genetic engineering, as well as terrorism and meanness. God will bring justice for the murders of the innocent. They didn't repent of using magic potions and drugs. Sorceries also included trying to communicate with the dead in all forms of magic. They didn't repent of their sexual looseness and perverted behaviors, nor did they repent for stealing. Summary. John sees the fall of Satan, which happened in the past. Then John sees Satan given a key to Hades, and Satan opens the abyss, which unleashes a huge demonic army. These demons will have power to bring great pain to unbelievers who in their torment will try to commit suicide but will be unsuccessful. As the sixth trumpet sounds, and John hears a voice coming out of the protruding corners of the golden altar located in front of God, the voice instructs the sixth angel of judgment to unleash the 4 fallen angels to lead the demon army. This demon army will kill 1/3 of the population of Earth. This demon army will be 200 million strong, riding demonic horses with tails like snakes. Despite all of the death and torment, the nations left will not repent and acknowledge Jesus Christ as Lord.